It's a daily talk show, episode 281.
This is a new segment. Well, just a new thing we're doing.
A whole show benchmark.
Yeah, old mate.
Yeah.
Old mate, Naysan.
I like that. Thank
Naysan
you.
Iraqi.
Appreciate it. Hello, everyone.
So we say old mate based on you are a friend of mine and you've been a friend for a number of years.
We go back.
You two, what I like is you've travelled together quite extensively, which I think explores a friendship parameters like no other.
In ways that remain in certain countries.
I just want to check if, because I've met Chris, I've met your brothers.
Who the fuck's Chris?
Chris Nichols.
Oh, Nichols.
Obviously
yeah.
So I've met
not an old mate.
I've met a few of Josh's friends, but I mean, like, pretty fortunate.
Your brothers aren't old mates, are they?
They're not old mates.
I don't talk to
them. But more just like people that know Josh on a personal level. Because I've got like a bunch of schoolmates that I grew up with that work in this building where we are.
Oh, wow.
This morning we bumped into a guy named John Safran.
Yeah, love him.
Yeah, he's a
big fan.
Australian
fizzy water
media personality and writer. Documentarian. If you don't know him, look him up. But he said in mid-conversation, Josh was, we were conversing with John and John was sort of telling a story and then Josh took it off down a rabbit hole that was basically taking something that John said that had nothing to do with where he was going.
He was talking about, what was it called? Stonemasons.
Stonemasons.
And I was like, stonemasons. And I started asking him questions about stonemasons. And he said in that moment,
you've clicked on a hyperlink, which I find is something Josh does. Have you noticed this? Where it's like you are talking about something, but he'll take it off on a real tangent. Is this something you've experienced? The hyperlink?
Yeah, and the other person just remains silent listening to Josh for half an hour. And then it's like, are you finished? Can I have the mic back, please?
It's also why we love him. So you've experienced hyperlink.
Yes, hyperlink, big time.
Yeah, so Naysan,
but I love it.
We travelled extensively.
We went to something like 27 locations around the world in, was it every single continent?
No, we didn't go to Antarctica.
Okay.
You stayed in the same room. Did he ever make you go to sleep listening to an ebook that he had downloaded? Audiobook?
Every night. Yeah.
Really?
Every night, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, every night.
So funny. Josh did it when we stayed in a room once.
No, it's good.
No, twice. It was twice that it happened.
We discovered a lot during that trip. I feel like I'm responsible for Josh learning that you don't wear anything other than cotton socks. Because I was pain. It's like wearing plastic bags on your feet with rubber bands.
If you don't wear,
yeah.
What were you wearing?
Painful.
Well, before we were going away for 3 months, so I thought I'm going to stock up on socks. I found these cheap socks. And it turns out all of them were like synthetic.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was...
and in Europe, a lot of the windows don't open in hotel rooms.
Yeah.
It was painful, let me tell you. You're like, we'd come in the morning sometimes and we'd see, the room hasn't been made. Well, yeah, because the poor woman or man trying to come in was like, oh my God, like I can't handle this room right now.
Naysan has sleep apnea.
I do.
Yeah.
I have it walking up the steps. You can hear me heavy breathing all the time.
So what is sleep apnea? I don't know.
Can you describe it?
Basically, your wind passages get blocked in the middle of the night while you're sleeping, and you can't tell, but you're basically suffocating. It's as if you're drowning. I think when I went to the doctors and did the sleep test, they said it's like, the guy was like, can you hold your breath for 70 seconds? I was like, no. He's like, well, that's what you've been doing all night.
Really?
Yeah. It's like ridiculous.
Is it because
I literally just thought there was a weird segue that Josh had made to saying that you had sleep apnea, but now I get it. You were in the same room together, so you were experiencing.
But he never checked if I was alive or not. I don't remember him ever budging me. Are you okay, Nace? No.
He's listening to an audio.
Yeah, that's right.
No, but you, because you're very noisy when you sleep.
Yeah. It's like, it's not just snoring. There's like a symphony orchestra going on, all different.
Interesting.
It's like sometimes I play the flute, sometimes a saxophone, sometimes it's a entire,
But is it because you've...
as long as you don't play the conductor.
No, does it get worse based on your weight?
There are, that does relate in some instances, but I was happy to find out when I went to the specialist, because I was like, yeah, I know, like after he told me the news, I was like, yeah, I know, I really got to lose weight. And he's like, no. What you've got is not weight related.
It's always classic Naysan. It's never weight related for Naysan. He has trouble going up the stairs. I'm like, maybe it's a weight. It's like, it's actually not.
It's not the weight.
It's not the
Sleep
weight.
apnea. So are you scared going to sleep?
No. I just don't sleep very much because you suffocate. So I just end up spending, like I get frustrated because I'm like drowning all the time. So I'm just like, might as well just get up and do some work.
Well, you had a whole like piece.
I have a sleep apnea mask, which I can't keep on my face because it's a big mask pushing oxygen into your nose. And then if you like turn a little bit, and I move quite a lot, I move to the side and it's like in my eyeball and stuff. And then I got this mouth guard made by our dear friend Nima.
Yeah. What's Nima is Christian Hull's dentist.
Yes.
Interesting.
Nima, yep. Ferdosi lives here in Melbourne, awesome guy. And he got this mouth guard made for me that's supposed to bring my jaw forward to help with the breathing. And I wear it, but the thing is, I'm alone. So I don't know if it's working or not. I've never had anyone. I'm not traveling with Josh, so I wouldn't know if I'm breathing funny or not. So Josh, we have to do another trip.
You should get the one of those apps where you can record yourself.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I think Mr.
You mean the
97,
recorder
did
on
you
the
did
phone?
you had a mate, didn't you? Did he record him? He discovered that he was walking around at night. How did he find that out?
Oh yeah, my best mate. He gets up to all these things during the night while he's asleep.
He's
He
a
accidentally
sleepwalker.
texted someone the other day.
Yeah.
But he accidentally like walked outside and he caught it on one of his like night Nest cameras sort of thing.
Freaky.
Yeah.
What was he doing?
Imagine that.
But he didn't
It's
even
just,
know.
He walked out and he walked back inside.
Oh, that was
no
weird
recollection.
He
of
needs
it.
to keep that recording. Have you seen Paranormal Activity? That's
I haven't.
about to
Weird unit. So you can get this app that basically activates the recording as soon as it hears anything. I caught some weird shit, me saying
Yeah, I
some
will.
weird shit.
I will do that.
Got a bit aggressive in some. Fucking.
Yeah.
Just
Fuck the teachers.
I wanted the noodles, not the rice.
A lot of Naysan and my discussions have been around food. Like when we travel,
Yes.
food is a big thing.
Yes, in Persian we say shikamu, which means you're of the stomach. You love eating.
shikamu. I thought it
Shikamu.
translated as shit talking.
Well, so
We can't talk because we're eating.
yeah.
no,
True.
but seriously, Naysan is obsessed with
Cereal,
your cereal.
kid cereal that you can get in the US that should be banned.
Oh, like
Because there's more nutritional value in the cardboard box than there is in the actual content. But I've banned myself. It's been a year. I like to say I've gone cold turkey, and I knew it was bad when I was visiting the US, and I ran in to get something that had like Panadol or something, and I found myself in the cereal aisle, like getting 5 boxes, and I was like, what did I come here for again? And I was like, I have a problem.
What was your favorite? Because what's Lucky Charms? What's
Lucky
the one
Charms
with
is good. Like if-
marshmallow?
There's a lot of them, but Lucky Charms is one of the popular ones. If you're really into cereal, you don't have a favorite. I would
Yeah,
get
true.
20 boxes at a time. you
Yeah.
know?
Junkies just have
Yeah,
whatever.
junkie.
They,
That's
Take
what
whatever. What's your accent? It sounds American.
I'm American, Persian American. I was born in Chicago, but I was raised in Papua New Guinea in the Pacific Islands.
Wow.
My parents moved there when I was a child, and I was there till I was 18.
So you got that international school twang.
I went to the international school. Yeah, I was the
Why do
only
kids always
American.
come out
for a
American
long
sounding
time.
American?
No.
out of international school?
I was the only one with an American accent. It wasn't because a lot of international schools in different parts of the world are run by Americans or
Okay.
an American curriculum, but ours wasn't. Ours was very international. So
Interesting.
everybody had a different accent. Like if you're Sri Lankan, you had a Sri Lankan accent. If you're a Ghanaian, you had a Ghanaian accent. It's
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
you were telling me that you reckon Australians have more ingrown toenails than
Per
any
capita.
Yeah.
I've never seen so many ingrown toenails. I've never seen it in Papua New Guinea.
Firstly, why have you seen them?
Oh, my dad was a doctor, and I've done a lot of medical work.
Okay.
And in Papua New Guinea, the only ingrown toenails I would see were from Aussie expat kids. So
What do you reckon? Why? We're just a bunch of gronks that can't cut our.
I don't know. It's weird because Australians don't always wear shoes. Like they
Yeah.
walk around in flip flops. So at first I thought maybe it's the plastic bag sock syndrome.
Yeah.
But maybe I don't know.
That is a weird thing. We were talking.
is weird. I
There was,
don't know.
we had toenail chat yesterday at my
Great.
parents' place,
Yeah.
and my brother has these tiny little big toenails because he had both sides cut.
Yeah,
yeah.
sounds
And-
familiar.
Yeah. Well,
They
mine doesn't even
cut them
grow
all the
now.
way down. But then what I got told was they then stick this like liquid in, and it stops the nail from
Yeah.
growing.
They didn't do that bit on mine. That's why every fucking 3 months I have to pull out.
It's disgusting.
a
I've
fin.
witnessed that operation many
gee.
times.
Gee.
It's actually.
I just want a TV show of you guys traveling. Non-stop
Yeah.
banter about food, toenails.
We had fun though. Actually,
Sleeping.
we had never met before we went. Like, it's not like
Bullshit.
we were buddies and we traveled. We were kind of. I had this idea, and I was talking to Collis about it a while ago, like years ago. Collis is the co-founder and CEO of Envato, the company we worked for, and then at the time, and then I was in the US for a while. I had been traveling for a while, and then I come back. The day I come back, I go into the office, and Collis is like, "Come into the office, let's talk." And he was like, "Have you met Josh yet?" I was like, "No." And he's like, "We have this new staff member named Josh. I think you guys would really get along." He came to me with this idea. "Remember how you wanted to travel and do this thing?" But I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "You need to talk to Josh." So then we immediately met up, talked. How many weeks later, we're on a
it
plane
was only a few
around
weeks
the
later, yeah.
world. Like,
And how far into the trip did you want to finish the trip?
I think it was the first 45 minutes. No, actually, we really clicked, and in some ways, it was cool that we didn't get to know each other because we didn't know each other before because we're getting to know each other. Like every story was new. It wasn't like I've heard the story again, except for my divorce story, which Josh wanted to strangle me by the end.
Also, Naysan had the reason that he was in the States before he came back and found out about the trip was like a divorce tour. So because he,
What does that mean?
Well, because he,
I was quite depressed.
it was
after my
depressed.
divorce.
So he, you have to make
sad.
it so dark. But he
Can we
traveled.
dim the lights for effect?
No, but no, he traveled. How long did you travel? 6 months before.
Before I saw, it was like a year.
A year.
Yeah.
So you had a divorce, and so then you were just like going from mate to mate's place.
It was weird. I was really sad about the divorce, and then I realized that I needed to be around like people that knew me before I was married, because everybody that I started meeting friends that I hadn't seen since I'd been married and divorced, and they were like, "You're not the same. Like, Naysan, you're like, you used to," because I was like the Joker and everything, and they're like, "God, you're just so down now, and are you okay?" And so I was like, "No, I got divorced," and I'd storm off.
If it was a taxi driver, it didn't matter who it
I'd
was.
talk about my
You'd
life to
talk
them,
about
and,
the divorce.
It's quite a big thing.
Yeah,
It is a big
It was a
thing,
good
yeah.
story though too.
It was good. It was good for the first like week, and then after that, I remember walking down the street in Macedonia or somewhere with Josh, and he was like, "Nace, like you got to stop talking about the divorce. It's killing me. Like, let's talk about something else."
She said she was going to go overseas and.
Let's not. Yeah,
Okay.
let's not
Doesn't
get
wanna
into
go there?
details. Yeah. Just
Can
for
we
her
just tell
sake.
that bit or no?
She went overseas to study and never came back.
Yeah.
Pretty much that's the.
Yeah.
It's a pretty crazy story.
There's something about traveling that you form quite a close bond. It's like there's
Yeah,
something
totally.
about the sort of you're open, especially to meeting people. I definitely have been, but the people I've travelled with, I've become close with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were lucky. We hit it off straight away, and we had a lot of things that complemented each other, like strengths. And I think I have to say, in the spirit of positive, giving positive
you're
energy
talking about
to each
yesterday's
other.
show.
Yeah.
Yesterday's show. I mean, I think like I was impressed. Josh was extremely young when we traveled. He hadn't traveled that much, but he really wanted to travel. And I didn't realize, because John is really fun and outgoing.
Did you say John? Did you call
Sorry,
me John?
I keep calling you John. Sorry, Josh.
What the fuck?
It's
He's
the
a
sleep
paid actor.
apnea.
He's
It's
never met Josh.
the oxygen.
Naysan is a paid actor. Are you okay?
I'm not the real
Yeah.
Naysan.
Are you okay?
No,
Yeah,
I've
go
So
on.
tell me more about
I've been
John.
doing that a lot lately. It's a lack of sleep. Sorry, John. I'm just kidding. So Josh
yeah.
was basically like, I didn't realize, because Josh is super like fun and outgoing, and we're goofing around from the beginning. But then like I realized he would get anxious. Like, we're gonna meet someone that we were supposed to. So we're doing this series of little videos that were about different people that worked for Envato or were selling their like website templates on Envato. And there's a series of these, and we were literally traveling like back to back. We're like in a country for 4 days, next country or next city, bang, bang, bang. We were just filming. And it was quite intense, sleeping whenever we got a chance. And, you have to hit the ground with enthusiasm, because we're representing the company, and also we're excited to meet them. And that, they were excited to meet someone from Envato. And
I had 30 Envato t-shirts.
yeah,
Packed in the
that was
bag.
our uniform, because we didn't have time to do washing. So every day we're just like, new shirt.
Great idea.
It was good. And so basically I remember thinking like, yeah, Josh is so social and everything. This is great. But once we had just met someone, and then we go back to the hotel, and Josh is like sitting on the edge of the bed, rocking a little bit, like in deep thought. And I'm like, one time he's like, mate, I can't do the Aussie accent, I'm sorry, but
horrendous.
he's like, how do you like? So if we meet them in the morning, are we going to do a handshake or a hug? You went in for both. You confused me. And he starts getting all like, handshake or hug? I don't know which one. He starts panicking a little bit. I'm like, oh, and so we did this little impromptu, like, okay, let's practice. So if I come and I'm just like, go with the flow. I don't know. Like, it's not like I'm planning handshake, like, I'm just like,
what did we do?
Read body language.
I think we hugged.
Yeah, you did
We
like
hugged.
that.
It was a hand and a hug.
Yeah, bring it in. There's I've always said there's like a bunch of podcast duos, and I reckon that for any good podcast duo, one of them has to be that guy that over internalizes the handshake or the hug.
Well, John Safran, you went for the sort of
homeboy. What's up?
Homeboy.
Yeah. Did you do the whole like?
Well, Tommy sort of forced it upon John.
Yeah.
Was he like, don't touch me?
He went in like that, and so I just went under. Got it to a point.
But I just don't. I was even thinking about in Pakistan how we met older ladies and stuff. I feel like I hugged or something. I feel like whatever I did was not culturally appropriate. Do you remember? I feel like maybe one time one was holding my head. I don't know if that was to keep me back.
What is that? Where is that?
It was a sign of endearment, I think.
Well, just grab your head.
Josh was a celebrity when we were in Pakistan. Like,
why,
we got on the
big, tall, white guy?
We got on the airline. I look Pakistani. Like when I'm in a meeting or something and somebody's Pakistani, they always talk to me in Urdu and stuff. I'm like, I'm not Pakistani. You're not? Like, no. We get on the plane.
Can you speak it, or you just
can't? No. I speak Persian,
but
not, which Urdu comes from Persian. Okay. But anyway,
I thought we get on this. Couldn't be speaking Pakistani.
No, I can't. I'm not Pakistani. Okay.
Got it.
So we get on this plane. I remember Air Pakistan from Malaysia, and like dodgiest flight. Like halfway through, that's another story. But anyway, we're getting and the guy at the front is kind of like, welcome.
It was in their language, obviously.
No, he was saying it in English.
No. It was,
he was saying in Urdu, but he wasn't really like enthusiastic. And then I was in front of Josh, so I come and he's like, "Welcome," and then he sees Josh, "Welcome, sir."
He took me to my seat.
Took him to his seat and stuff like that.
I was the only white guy on the whole flight.
He was the only white guy on the flight.
So what is it? What's the novelty?
I'm fucking white.
He's white and tall. We had people. We're filming in the streets and stuff. And we had women bringing their children to take photos with Josh. We have evidence.
What is that?
You can put it on if you guys have like information below the podcast.
Yeah.
Show notes.
It was awesome. It was cool.
Josh, I think it's come from your friendship with Naysan. The
long story.
When you meet somebody and it's tarof, what's it called?
Tarof.
Can you tell us about this?
That is an awesome word. Okay, this is actually a lot of cultures do this. This is not just a Persian.
We noticed our Turkish friend doing it the other day. Well, we got free water from it, water bottles.
Nice. And he walked off and he was like, why did I do that? No, so tarof in a lot of cultures have this again, like all over the world, where it's kind of like, it's a sense of like courtesy and being polite. But let's say you come to my home and I'm with we're a Persian family. We would bring you tea and say, please have some tea. And you're like, no, I'm fine. No, we insist, have some tea. No, really, I'm fine. No, you must have some tea. We insist. No, really, I'm fine. Whether you really want it or not is irrelevant. That interaction of saying, please have some tea, and also not taking it straight away is called tarof.
Okay.
Right? So it's great.
Hard to get.
But it can backfire too in certain cultures. And, like in Australia, I think like if you want it, you'll say yes. And if you don't, my grandparents on my mom's side moved when they left to the US. They landed and their neighbors came by and were like, welcome and stuff. Come over for dinner tonight. So my grandparents got, dressed, and my grandma in her best jewelry, my grandfather, a 3-piece suit. They go next door and the family's already eating in their shorts and t-shirts and like, come and join us, And they're like, no, really, we're not hungry. They were starving, right? They had not eaten all day. They're starving. They're like, okay, well, just like sit down and, until we finished. And they were just sitting there very politely, stomach growling and stuff. This family eating, trying to talk to them. They didn't really speak English. And when they left, they're like, how rude, kind of thinking in a sense. I mean, now, of course, they're like,
They get it.
They
What about
get
the
it.
leather jacket story?
Leather jacket, yes. A friend of mine offered someone a leather jacket. Like, he was like, oh, I love your jacket. It's like, it's yours, take it. Really? And he took it. And it was an expensive leather
So
jacket.
where's this come from? Because did they not establish the flaws within this,
No, because it
exchange?
works if everyone taught offs.
Okay.
It's when people don't taught off. So in a culture where everyone does that, it's just the etiquette. Like, if you're dying of thirst and you come over and it's like, oh, it's hot outside, please have some water.
Yeah.
No, really, I'm fine. No, I insist, have some water, it's hot. No, really, it's fine. Have some water. Okay, thank you, because it's from your hands. The language, Persian language is also extremely flowery and just like full of, encouragement. And some of the words, when you translate them directly, or the sayings are very quite graphic, like, may my life be a sacrifice. Thank you so much. May my life be a sacrifice.
Just wanted a fucking Diet Coke, bro. I could imagine that would be hell for you, Josh. Like if you're anxious about a handshake or a hug,
And
it's
then-
like,
and then
who's going to stop this tear off? Who wins it?
Well, this is why, like me, I just pay for everything when it comes to going out. But when with Naysan, it's a constant. We'll both have our cards out and we're fighting for the bill.
Yeah, that's a typical Persian who pays the bill.
But so who actually wants to pay the bill?
Probably
You both
nobody.
But you have to.
No, that's-
your whole thing is like part of the tar-off thing is you got to be happy with.
Yeah, you got to be sincere. And, the idea is also that things always come back full circles. Like, so you pay for the dinner this time and next time they'll pay for the dinner. And
yeah.
things always
Yeah.
come
We've all
come
got that
around.
one mate though that you've paid for the dinner.
There's always the
every
dude,
fucking
I
time.
left my wallet. Yeah,
Yeah.
right, every
And
time.
is this a religious thing or a
No, purely cultural.
culture?
So what's the difference between Persian culture and Iranian culture?
So Persia was an empire. Nowadays, when they say Persia, it means the nation of Iran. It's pretty much the same thing. Iran is made up of a lot of different cultures. I mean, there's a lot of Turkish influence as well. A lot of Persians maybe don't like to hear that or do like, I don't know. But there's a huge, I think it's something like 45% of Iranians are of Turkish descent as well. There's Afghanis as well. But Persian culture is more kind of like the culture of Iran, and it's a term they use for the language. Although now in Persian, for example, we say Farsi as the word, for the language. But now in places like Los Angeles and other places where there's a large Persian population, you'll see signs saying Farsi. Technically, it's incorrect. It's like writing Espanol when it should be, like when you speak English, you don't say, do you speak Espanol? You say, do you speak Spanish? It's kind of the same thing. You don't say,
So
do you speak-
Farsi is the Persian way of saying Persian.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So in that area of the world, there's most of the countries are Arab in descent, or ethnically they're Arab. So like you might be from Iraq, but you're an Arab. You're
Are you
from
an Arab?
Iran. No, I'm a Persian. So it's a sore spot for a lot of Persians. There's this desire to kind of differentiate, and it is quite different. There's obviously similarities in religion and other things that because of trade and religious, certain religions spreading, there's certain similarities, but then there's also stark differences. And Persians really, make sure they differentiate themselves. And not necessarily only, it's not a prejudice thing, but it's it's something different. It's not like saying, oh, you're Japanese, do you guys speak Chinese? It's like, no, it's a different language. Yeah.
I asked him if he was Arab. I know that very well that he's not,
He's
but
not.
you raise your voice sometimes when talking. Yeah.
So-
It's like when I had to call my Italian mate, my
Greek?
Sicilian mate Greek. Oh no, Italian mate Greek.
Yeah,
Like, you're Greek, eh?
It's
He gets
different,
so
different
angry.
language. All cultures have overlap though.
Yeah,
And so why do you call yourself Persian and not Iranian?
Because I've never been to Iran, and Iran is the nation, and I don't have an Iranian passport, but Persian is my ethnicity.
Okay. Are there other examples of that in the world, or is it a unique, what's the equivalent in the world?
You could say, this is a bit.
What about a Canadian
Controversial.
saying I'm North
that's-
American?
No, because you could do that, but Canadians like not an ethnic group; it's a nation. Like, I mean, there's you could
Don't
say
bring
for
up
example,
Israel because I have no idea about
that's
Israel.
complex. But you could say, for example, like an Iraqi is Arab. So if someone's parents or grandparents were from Iraq, they might not really feel associated with the nation, but they're Arab ethnically. So
do you find that if someone says, "Oh, you're Iranian," do you find that do you have pushback on it?
Not really. Like, I mean, it depends on why they're saying it. I just say, actually, I'm American because that's my citizenship, but I'm ethnically Persian.
And is part of the pushback because of, the Islamic Revolution and all that sort of thing? And
there's
faith?
definitely been historically, I mean, in 1979, there was an Islamic revolution in Iran. So that because of the Islamic Revolution, there was a lot of people killed. But I'm a religious minority in Iran called the Baha'is or Baha'i Faith. And a lot of Baha'is were rounded up and killed and persecuted and continue to be persecuted. So that obviously is a sore spot for many people. And it's not just the Baha'is that were persecuted. A lot of minorities were persecuted, and even like people of different political beliefs, like communists as well. And so a lot of different minorities were persecuted, but a lot of people like to make the differentiation nowadays because they might not want to be associated with the Islamic Republic of Iran, so they say they're Persian.
Fuck, we've had it good here, haven't we? Australia. Like I was thinking yesterday, I was driving down the street I grew up in, just thinking this for my entire life, and will probably be for most of my son's life here in Australia. There has been nothing. That we've encountered.
I mean, there's prejudice, but it's not like people getting shot.
Well, I mean, my grandfather was born in 1909, and so he was still alive when Einstein was in existence.
Yeah.
But so like there was some real pivotal times in history that we have not been there for.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty relaxed. I have a sense like in Australia, I'm like, fuck, is something bad going to happen? Like, are we going to see a downtime?
It feels like it.
You reckon?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I constantly
I have a lot of faith in Australia. I think it's one of the most amazing countries in the world. I mean,
what's the most likely thing to go wrong?
I don't even know.
the sad reality, though, is it's all perspective, right? So, like, we're saying, yeah, it's great, nothing's going to happen. But then if you talk to an Aboriginal, they're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
The catastrophe has already happened and continues to go on. So it depends on, where you're at in society as well. So,
Yeah, true.
But I mean, in Iran, it was, a situation where Baha'is, during the time of the Shah, there was some prejudice. And if somebody was maybe a fundamentalist
What does
Muslim,
that mean? Sorry, the Shah thing?
the Shah was the king of Iran. He was the ruler of the nation before
the revolution?
Yeah, the Islamic Revolution happened, and then they kicked the Shah out. But in that time, didn't matter really what religion you were. Everybody just went to work. Kind of like in Australia, nobody asks what religion you are. Of course, it doesn't mean people are without prejudice, but you imagine like you're going to work every day with your buddies and stuff. And your neighbors, you wave to them every day you come home from work, and then the next day suddenly, or in the middle of the night, guys kick down your door with machine guns and then drag you away. And this is the last time you see your kids and your wife, and they don't know whatever happened to you. You've gone missing, and basically many of them were killed, and it was the neighbors that were like, no, it's them, they're Baha'is, So I mean, and we've seen this in Rwanda, we've seen this in Nazi Germany. This kind of thing happens in a lot of places. It's sad that it still happens today, and hopefully people can just get over it a little bit and realize that we're all the same.
Are you much of a news junkie nowadays? Do you
Not
think?
as much. I used to work for CNN for a bit. And I was
Fake news.
I was addicted to it.
Fake news.
It was
It
was a different CNN then as well, but it was very, it was addictive because you didn't want to miss. Like you'd get off your shift and you had to go to your next shift, and you didn't want to miss a beat.
What did you do there?
So I did different things. By the time I left, I was a producer for International.
Was the term fake news actually around then? Were people using it?
No.
Trump wasn't in power then.
It was also like I kind of left when CNN got taken over by Time Warner. And so the nature of the work was very different. Also different departments like CNN International, which is what you watch in Australia, is different to what they watch in the US. In the US, it's CNN Domestic. So it depends on who you're talking to. And news also depends on just who wants to decide what is important. That's one. And then the other thing is whether you can actually get somebody to share information on the ground. Like Sierra Leone, for example, went through a vicious civil war for a long time, but we couldn't get any journalists in there, and the ones who were there were killed.
Jeez.
And then how can you report stuff when there's nobody in there to report stuff? So it's a combination of things.
Our mate, Conspiracy Jimmy, says that Anderson Cooper is actually part of the CIA. Have you heard about this?
No, I
Anderson
haven't heard
Cooper,
that.
who's that?
He's like
He's a CNN reporter
Yeah.
with white hair, very popular.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I mean,
that he's part of the
it's
CIA.
Well, it's known that one of the best, like it's common practice for intelligence agencies to use international aid workers and journalism as a cover. So, but I'm not saying Anderson Cooper is.
Naysan's always wanted to be a federal agent or something, haven't
Have you?
No. I almost joined the FBI a long
Yeah.
time.
Really?
Yeah.
So you got to talk about.
No,
like,
we're not.
What do you mean you nearly joined?
I was close to.
I did the training.
Yeah.
I got through.
I never got in. Or did I? No, I'm just kidding. No, I didn't. But no, it was interesting because they really needed people. And yeah, a friend of mine that I worked with at CNN had a friend at the FBI that was saying they were desperate for people and you should apply and have an interview and stuff.
Was the East Timor? You spent how long in East Timor?
I lived in East Timor for a year.
Mm-hmm.
That was an interesting time. I was
Tommy's just choking. Sorry.
Sorry, guys.
Was it East Timor? Is it the comment?
It's about your timing.
Flashback. How are we for time, guys? I don't
No,
know.
it's absolutely fine. Well, Jesus.
How are you for time?
No, I'm worried.
No, we have. Oh, you want to try that?
No, I don't know.
So the East Timor thing. Explain what you were doing there.
At the time I was married and my wife had studied international development work and she had studied in London. We were living in the UK in Brighton and she wanted to get like on the ground experience and not be in an office job in somewhere like New York or London. So we decided to go to East Timor. I'd been following East Timor quite a bit when I worked at CNN. Even though I wasn't covering it, I was very interested in it because it reminded me of Papua New Guinea a lot and it was fascinating what was happening there. So as soon as my wife graduated from her degree, we jumped on a plane and moved to East Timor. We didn't have jobs. We were fortunate enough we had a friend who was living at the Baha'i Center there. There was a Baha'i Center. And so we went in and crashed with him. And we got jobs within the first month that we were there. I created my own program to teach video production to local Timorese. And we tried to do positive content in the spirit of positivity because there was a lot of negativity going on. We tried to create short little videos of young Timorese that were doing positive things for their community and not related to their jobs, just spending all their extra time helping their communities.
Cool.
So how do you get like a grant or how do you even approach that?
I mean, it's a lot of meeting different people, but a lot of the agencies there really wanted to do positive work. And so it was a matter of basically, I kind of looked at the area for a while and I didn't want to just do something. I wanted to see what the needs were. And I realized media was really lacking, and the lack of media and news and journalism can actually cause revolutions and massacres. It can be quite dangerous. Like if everything is Chinese whispers or just hearsay, you could have a lot more violence. And I felt, let's try and get something like this done. So I was passionate about it. And I started talking to heads of different not-for-profits there and saying, this is a program I want to do. I want to train young Timorese in creating like videos, but I want the training not to be theoretical. I want us by the end of the program to have made these short videos.
That's cool.
And so at that time, Plan International decided, this is a great idea, and they took it on.
What kind of cameras are you using over there?
At that time, we used the Sony, the Z1s?
Yeah.
Or Z1s?
Like handycam thing?
Yeah, that was sort of
Handycam thing?
HDV.
Yeah, there was the...
So this sort of being what, 06?
mini DV cassettes,
07?
yeah.
What year?
That was 08.
Yeah.
God, you've lived in a few places, haven't you?
Yeah, I calculated because I'm applying for Australian citizenship eventually. I've lived in 10 different countries.
Wow. And how many countries have you gone to? Have you counted that?
50 to 60.
Yeah. I mean, what point do you
Stop counting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a little competition with my sister when I was just finished university. My older sister came home one day. We were like having breakfast, and she was like, "How many countries have you been to?" And I was like, "I don't know." We both started counting, and she's like, "Oh." And then she comes home from work with a map, 2 maps, and she's like, "Right." She puts a map on her wall and then one on my wall, and she gives me a little box of pins, and she's like, "Put a pin in every single city and country you've been to." And the rule is you can't just have been through the airport. Like you have to spend a few hours, left the airport, gone and had a meal, talked to people, seen the streets or whatever. So so that was a long time ago though. But I think right now it's probably 50 to 60.
Having a meal whenever we're traveling and eating, Naysan, like you're a bit of a drama queen, don't you think?
Was I?
Just when it comes to food, just like even before you were concerned because you're like, I need to eat something.
Yeah,
before.
I get really like my blood was dropping. I was like, oh my God, I need to eat.
What'd you eat?
I had one of those little from the grocery store, one of those little pizza.
Little cheese
things.
and
Oh
bacon.
yeah, you saw a
Terrible
guy
for
eating
you.
one of those walking across the road the other day. Remember?
Yes, that's right. And I was
Good
like,
at
what's the
spotting
deal
food
with that?
from far away.
But yeah, Naysan has gone up to a McDonald's employee and complained about his dry quarter pounder. Do you remember that in Barcelona?
I went 3 times.
Yeah.
But it was bad. I mean, I was hangry at the time. I was so hungry and angry. But it was ridiculous. It was like eating this. It wasn't even dry.
table.
It was like eating wood. It was like, this has got to be
They
a
shouldn't
joke.
stuff that.
But
There's a
normally-
system in place.
Naysan will end up at every fucking kitchen. If we go to a restaurant, before you know it, he's in with the chefs talking to them. It's
Why? Is this something you identify?
Backseat cooking.
Do you
Really?
identify?
You want to keep it on the flame that long? No.
Do you,
No. I do like
Are
cooking.
you
I
agreeing
love
with what
cooking.
Josh
What,
says?
yeah, what do you think? Like, why do you think that is?
You mean I'm friends with them?
Yeah, well, you just
Yeah,
get
I
up and-
love, and I think sometimes we go to restaurants and we just like eat and walk out, and I like to thank them and let them know, because you always see the staff that you work with, but you don't always see the guys in the kitchen putting stuff together. So I generally try and say thank you, goodbye. What's that face, Josh?
Well, it's just a funny concept. Knows
And also,
everyone.
we go to this Afghani restaurant here sometimes, Persian flavors, and the guy's lovely. And I
Springvale
remember
Road.
going from the beginning when him and his wife were there and working really hard, and they expanded. And I just always wanted to thank them and say hi. And
That's nice. It's called just being a nice guy, Josh.
Yeah, I know, it's strange.
Just being
really.
personable and stepping outside your comfort zone.
it's pretty next level. Don't you agree? It's pretty
I don't think
you
so. I
stand out. It stands out.
Well, I'm not doing it to try and stand out. I just
no.
thought,
I mean,
the
you
spirit
wouldn't-
of encouragement.
It's not something that you'd find the guy who's awkward about the handshakes doing.
No, absolutely
He's not
not.
in the
I'll be
no,
out
he's
the
out the door.
I'll be
already.
out the front.
He's in the car.
But I'm interested when Naysan comes out. I go, so what was their story? What was their deal?
Yeah. I give him the whole lowdown.
So I
he
find
finds
out,
it really interesting.
but I just don't want to have to necessarily have the interaction. But we have here. It says eggplant meal on it.
Yeah, we got these cans in front of us. You guys went down to Coles, was it? You
No,
got
we
these?
didn't get
No, I got this from a Persian grocery store in Sydney. So
You brought
during
these
our
from-
travels, one of the things we tried, Josh tried as well, was Persian food, which it's starting to get more and more popular here. You start to find restaurants. And one of Josh's favorite things on the menu is called Kashke bademjan, which is this type of eggplant dish. It's not the same as baba ganoush. Baba ganoush is common in a lot of Arab countries and in Israel.
What is the difference?
This has got, it uses
cheese
this
curd.
kind of cheese curd to flavor it, and it has fried onion in it as well.
Yum.
And different places make it in different ways. We've had some places which were an Italian restaurant owned by Persians.
It was
but-
called Giuseppe's, I think.
Yes, and their
in
kebab
California.
and Persian food was phenomenal. It was outside of LA.
Yeah, there's a Persian kebab called kubida, which is they
Mince.
take like mince and they put onion all in it. Naysan's got IBS. He shouldn't be eating any
Well,
of this.
you
sort
said to
of
me
stuff.
before we started, I can't eat this.
Why?
I thought you said I can't eat this.
No, I didn't say that at all.
Oh,
No, so
I've never eaten it before. So I've never eaten it from a can. And
Okay.
I was in a Persian grocery store in Sydney with my younger sister, and I saw this. I was like, oh my God, Josh.
Yeah.
Because he loves it. So I was like, I got to get this
So
for
you've
him.
come from Sydney. You've had to lug this around.
I've lugged this
He's
around.
lugged so many dumb things. What about the Papua New Guinean
Arrows?
The arrows.
Don't bring up the arrows.
No,
No,
please
spot for me.
Go.
I carried these arrows from villages that I got.
Like arrows.
Like actual arrows.
bow and
Papua New
arrows.
Guinean arrows are the length of this table. and they're bamboo and they're intricate. Like the head of the arrow is this long and they're carved and painted. And the paint isn't like dipping it in paint. It's like through flowers and stuff. Beautiful arrows. I carried these around the world for like 10 years every time I moved, and I would display them on my wall, like I would fan them. And I remember like losing them somehow and not knowing where they were until one day I was visiting my grandma in Oklahoma. She lives in Oklahoma. And she's like, Naysan, you left this tube thing here once. And I was like, what? My arrows. And they were in this tube that I had made. I couldn't find a proper pipe or tube. So I'd like put all this cardboard together, made this awesome hardcore tube. I take this, I'm still traveling, go around the world with this thing, come back to Australia, a domestic flight. I land in Sydney. My flight from Sydney to Melbourne, I took Tiger Air. Yeah. I never fly them anymore. They really disappointed me, Tiger Air, if you're listening. Seriously.
Yeah, he's a big listener.
And
Mr.
I
Tiger.
kept telling them, guys, like, I want to take this on the plane with me. They didn't know what I was like, it's artifacts. They're like, no, it's going to be fine. Like, put it in fragile. We'll take care of it. They don't like throw it in. You'll even watch. So I go to the plane. They take it from me, hand it down to the guy. Like, see, we're doing a good job. They put it in this like hangar. We land in Melbourne. I'm standing at the conveyor belt. And this flat pancake tube comes out with tire marks all over it around the conveyor belt. And I'm like, oh my God. And I wrote to them and they're like, no, like read the disclaimer. And by the way, why were you taking arrows on a flight? You know?
Yeah.
Real.
So the arrows broke.
The arrows were all kind of, because it's bamboo, they were flattened. So it's tons of fibers. So it's really hard to fix. I still have them.
So we have this.
Yeah, we're going to eat this?
Bademjan. So do you reckon I shake it?
No.
The thing that
we need a plate though.
Yeah.
I think we should put it
Mr.
on.
Mr. Sevs, 97.
Where is he going to get a plate from?
He knows where to get a plate from.
Oh, great. The interesting thing about this is it actually says that it was manufactured in Iran.
Yeah.
Which I believe that there are trade restrictions, embargoes.
With Australia?
I think so.
Oh, I don't know.
Or maybe not.
Ingredients: eggplant, garlic, mint, soya oil, salt, turmeric.
Oh, no onion?
Yeah,
Doesn't
that
say,
was
does
only-
it?
I thought, did you not
Well,
say?
that's the English.
Amazing that it had
ingredients.
English on there.
And then
What's
there's no
that?
sugar. That's what I'm pumped about. They
Oh,
haven't
you're
put
doing no sugar.
I'm trying not
That's
to.
why you look
I'm being thanks, mate. I'm being naughty eating this bread today, but it's flat bread. It's
flat
squished bread.
It's not
so
as,
So we'll wait
less
until...
dense.
We have two types.
Yeah, so why did you get two types, Nathan?
Just because I saw this and she had just made it and it was hot and fresh. I was like, that looks amazing.
Yeah.
And this is what's called pocketless pita, which means like this pita, you tear apart and you can open it. That's
yeah.
what they put falafel or shawarma in.
Yeah, yeah.
And this one is pocketless. You tear it, but there's no
Thanks, Mr.
space.
97. Okay, so we'll open this up. We'll just do
We'll
one.
do one.
Pan.
I brought just
in case it's really
I'm not
good.
sure if it's good or not. It could be a
Yeah.
nice wet
So
plate.
I'm
Yeah,
just gonna
it's a
try, let's try and not
Okay,
get
this
this
is
on
always about a wet
the
plate.
road.
It better
Don't
not
want to
get
do-
all
Here, you
over.
do it, Nathan.
Here we go.
We don't want it near the roadcaster.
it's
here we go.
gone- yeah.
Oh,
One job.
So
One
He's
job.
pulled
is-
the pin off.
It's come all the way from Iran, so I guess that's
Can you get a knife, a fork, or something?
Should we do this
Around
one
there?
instead?
no.
No. We'll keep this one going.
So what's happened is it's got one of those like cat food clip tuna things.
The amount of times I've had this happen to me, it's
Dumb design.
It's ridiculous.
And it's probably two, given it's, don't even try. Can I try and smell it at least? Let's
Yes.
have a look.
Yeah,
So
you schnoz in that. Josh loves to smell things. I can smell it. I got a whiff.
it smells good. Should we warm it up a little bit or no?
I think that's not a bad idea, but don't do it in the can.
Yeah, it was zap.
All right. Do you want me to
This
get
is
into
scary.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
No, it's all
Fuck.
good.
don't even.
Oh, you're a
That's
loose
good.
unit.
I'm all good.
I'm
Canned,
like, should we get under the table?
canned food for some reason sort of scares me a little bit.
Dude, I was looking at some canned
Okay,
spam.
careful because there's a lot of oil.
yeah.
Isn't all spam canned?
Okay.
Oh, this looks good.
What's at the bottom? Oh, that's the.
So
the
it's
can thing.
eggplant that's been mashed up, obviously.
Okay. Let's
Do you
try
want
some.
pocketless pita or
We'll go pocketless, I guess, or whatever's open. This one's
Let's
pocket.
do this one.
Okay. What's your mic technique, Nathan?
Yum.
Sorry,
That's okay. All right.
a little bread for you.
So here we go. Thank you.
There you
So
go.
you
Yeah,
can.
no, I don't. It's okay.
You can watch
You're not
us.
going to try it?
No, it's okay. What? I'm fine.
No, you must.
No,
I
I'm
insist.
okay.
I really insist.
Okay.
That was a
Spot off. It was perfect. Really well done. Really well done.
I think it was
I really wanted it.
I think it was a bit panto. Mr. 97, you can come and try it as
you
well.
doing
Here you
it.
go.
It'd be hilarious.
There you go. Have a little dip in there. This reminds me of. Do you remember Good Morning Australia where they had what's his name? Remember there was the guy who was
you got to actually
Bert
grab
Newton's
it. That's just
assistant.
the oil.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you gotta
Yeah, I've put some.
Do this.
Use it for. All right.
Go like this.
Persian.
Do that.
Okay. So I mean, this is a Tuesday, not Fat Fridays, but that's okay. We're let's have a taste.
It's not what I thought, but it's all right. Heated up would be better.
Out of 10,
6.
It's very.
in comparison to the other ones you've had.
Nah, it's like
2.
I don't think it compares. Like 3, maybe.
All right.
Do you reckon? So, does your mum make this, Naysan?
Yes.
Yeah, is this like a? I wonder what the equivalent Australian dish is. So just a white boy that's grown up in Australia. What do you think that is?
Pie, meat pie.
Meat pie? Like toasted sandwiches, toasties.
How would this be a?
I'm just trying to think about something from
Yeah,
my
what's
childhood that
cultural
makes
that
me
we-
think about. Nothing's cultural for Australians.
What about
It's like,
the things with
Well,
the
people
butter?
don't eat this as a meal.
This is
It's
like a
usually
dip.
just had as
Can I
like
have
a,
some more bread, please?
Here.
Oh, thank you. That's one thing. Like Naysan is used to looking after me. Don't you feel?
I'm a feeder. Apparently, I never knew that term until Bree said it.
Yeah, when
I'm
she
a
was on,
feeder.
on a diet, and you would just try and slam her with
I
food.
can't help myself.
But what? Can you talk about what your mum does? You're allowed to.
So
or no?
how you cook
CIA.
this?
No. What she does for work?
CIA.
It's interesting.
she's
job.
CIA, isn't she?
So my mom worked. I mean, she's retired now, but she worked for a not-for-profit, which worked with the Australian government in helping refugees that have come through the system get placed into their homes. And my mom lives in Canberra, so she would get assigned like X number of refugee families or individuals, depending. And then she would work with them and everything from finding an apartment for them, making sure there was a fridge and an oven and everything was ready for them to come in. And then she would come. So like, let's say a family came from Sudan and there was like a husband, wife, and 3 kids. She'd make sure that they were enrolled in their English classes. They were getting all the things they needed. They were, if they had suffered trauma, they were getting, therapy for that. And so it was all kind of like a liaison for that family to work with them. Everything from picking them up from the airport to giving them the keys to their home or apartment.
And so she's an interpreter.
And now she's and she's also an interpreter. She was a certified interpreter. So she would
she goes to like Nauru and shit.
she would go separate to her job. She would go take time off and then go to Nauru or Manus Island or Darwin and work as an interpreter for the Persians that would come.
So basically, people from Iran would how'd they get?
That's
arrived?
a very controversial topic too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a lot of controversy in it, but basically
as to how they got here.
Yeah, because there's the refugees my mom worked with through the agency was all people that had come through the United Nations and through what's generally considered legal means. But then the ones that would come into Nauru and Manus and Darwin and other areas are what is often considered in Australia as illegal means. So they would get on boats from Indonesia and come.
Yeah.
It's sad because many of them died and they were smuggled basically, through smugglers.
Isn't there that whole thing where it's like
It's a controversial topic
because
and it's a very complex topic.
Because I remember as a kid being in SRC and going to a state SRC conference,
What's SRC?
Student Representative Council,
Okay.
and they were saying that it's not illegal to seek asylum.
Right.
So, but I get what you're. Yeah.
I mean, that's not a term I'm coming up with. It's something that is
So
controversial. Like it's in the news.
So
a
how
lot,
how did the unconventional people get here?
So many of them come on flights from Iran to Malaysia, and then they make their way from Malaysia to Indonesia, and then they go to some coastal towns, and then they fill up a boat, and basically as many people as possible get on the boat, and then make their way to Australian waters, and then they would actually give them captain of the ship, they would give him it was usually like a fisherman from Indonesia who had a boat, but they would choose the worst boats because they knew that once it was confiscated, the boat is gone. They're not going to choose an expensive boat. So it was usually a boat that was falling apart, and they would give them a satellite radio. So as soon as they hit Australian waters, they would often call the Coast Guard to just come and get them because they're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it's a very, you don't realize my mom has gone in with the control center, and she was like, it's really like finding a needle in a haystack. Like when something like that, when they get a call, all boats have to turn to try and find this little ship.
So there's a lot of resources
that go into, and they can spend all night trying to find it. It's literally this little dot, and you don't know, like maybe it's sunk, maybe it hasn't, maybe it's quite
It's hard because the people on the boat, what they're doing, they wouldn't be doing if they had another option, and so it's so hard.
Naysan has interesting. Like I feel like you've got an interesting perspective because I feel like I say that shit and then you sort of like, a lot of these people are criminals.
Yeah, it's not. I wouldn't say it's my perspective, but I mean, there's always a mixed bag of types of people that are, seeking refugee status. I mean. There's one, you're fleeing persecution, obviously, is the main one. And then there's also people that are just like, they want a better life or, for their kids. Maybe they weren't being persecuted, but they feel they live in a society that they don't agree with, or, they might not be chased by the government, soldiers or whatever, but they just don't agree with it, or they just want a better life for their children. But then there are, it is often, and I mean, this is, I'm going to say this, but then people might get upset with this, but there are criminal elements involved as well, like where somebody might have murdered somebody and then they need to get away fast, and then they go through these methods to get away. So it's a mixed bag, there's always different types of people, which is also why it's hard for countries to try and process them, because they have to do interviews and figure out like, is this person's story legit or not? Is this person a criminal? Could they be running from a crime they committed? And it's hard because it's hard to deal with if the person, let's say, is genuinely seeking political asylum and their life is on the line. You can't ask the country that they've left, is this guy a criminal? They'll be like, yes, of course he is, like he's killed somebody or something. So it's it's a very difficult situation for all involved.
If you were a producer at CNN, based on your experience of being a producer at CNN, what do you think the news here in Australia, how do you think they're selling this?
I mean, it obviously depends on the channel and stuff. I have to say I'm a huge fan of SBS. I think SBS is one of the best government channels I've ever seen in my life. I think it's phenomenal. I love their take on things. And of course, their news takes stories from different news agencies. And I love the fact that they show international films. They have this global perspective, and I think
international. Tommy's watched a lot of the SBS international films,
late night ones.
Yeah.
They do show some great films. I know why. I know what Josh is referring to.
The breast.
It's
a lot of.
It's called the French films, guys.
Yeah.
But I remember, like growing up, that was a big SBS. Flicking it across on SBS, you would commonly see naked.
Yeah,
a bit of nudity.
Yes. There's a lot of that in certain cinemas.
Yeah,
French.
The
Europeans. Yeah. Oh, really? Never heard of that. Yeah. No, but I think what's important about news is to show as many different perspectives, and I think that's always tricky because you have limited time, and as society as well, we've gone less and less into looking at things in depth. We want just instant. Give us a 30-second, 1 minute spiel, and then we're okay. Like we know about the situation in Syria, or we know about the refugee crisis and such and such. And
headlines.
We don't have the headline mentality. We don't have as much in-depth reporting anymore, unfortunately.
As someone who has spent a lot of time in Australia, but not born here, are Australians as racist as we think they might be? What's your vibe?
I mean, obviously it depends on a person's experience. Like with my look, someone else like who looks, maybe a Sudanese might have a different experience, and a Vietnamese, and it depends who you're running into. Generally, I will say that when I lived in Papua New Guinea, in school, the people we always got into fights with and that were the kids that were racist were always Australian. We always had problems with Australian to the point that I thought I would never live in Australia. But now that I live here, and I'm sure, you know, culture and society changes. And I'd passed through Australia many times and experienced racism, not to myself, but to others, like I would see on the street. This is like going back years, like, you know, 10, 20 years ago. But I think in the last 10 years, at least since I've been in Australia 10 years, I feel like Australia is pretty awesome. At least my experiences have been great. And I feel Australians are very honest about things. I think there's certain things that they say here that, for example, if they're in the US, people would say that's racist. But it's sort of innocence often about the racism sometimes. Like I've had people say like, you know, you don't mind me asking, like, what is your look or whatever, you know, like things like that where and
fucking good looking.
Exactly. Like
that's what
other
it is.
places, or that's a strange name. What do you mean? And you know, like other people mean like, what do you mean strange? Your name is strange, you know? Why is your name the standard, not mine, you know? And there's a lot of ways you can look at stuff, but I think you can tell someone's attitude in the way they ask and not trying to be, you know, not trying to take a stab at you. So I don't know. I've really had a great experience in Australia and I really love it. And there have been times where I've gone into a shop and, you know, I wasn't, you know, the vibe wasn't the best from the person helping me until I start talking and they hear I have an American accent. And then they're like, oh, you're from the States? You're American? And it changes everything suddenly. And it's like, what do you know? But, you know, it's like, oh, why didn't you come and ask if I needed help? I've been in the shop for like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You know?
Bias, unconscious bias.
Yeah.
Is the traveling. I feel like when we were at airports, we would joke that you were sort of, you know, post 9/11, people would sometimes give us extra looks. Do you actually feel that? Like, I know we joke about that.
No, actually, I have never had issues with that anywhere. Yeah, I've never had issues with that at all, surprisingly. But like when we were in London, we landed from Pakistan in London and Josh had grown a beard.
I've seen him.
really
He looked
sick
dodgy.
And you know, I was like sure that I might get hassled, or Josh was kind of like, let's go in separate lines or whatever.
The problem with the beard was he looked like someone that could have fled Australia and he's trying to blend in. That was the problem with it. It was huge.
It was quite a severe
funny.
neck beard.
In London, like I was just kind of let through. Like the guy asked me like, oh, how long are you here for? I was like 4 days. He's like, okay. And then I'm waiting and I look and Josh has got these 5 federal agents around him.
Is this the
all questioning him?
the ball touch time?
This was the federal police just interviewed me, and then when I went to the US, that was when the secondary screenings started.
And there's something like a number of times you have to travel before it gets taken off.
It was like 7 domestic flights, I think, until it went off. As someone who's religious, what's the Australian sort of spin on faith when you tell someone you're Baha'i?
Yeah.
First they'd say, I can imagine they say, what the bloody hell's that?
Yeah.
You're Baha'i.
Well, I hadn't heard of Baha'i until I met Josh.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Like I think Australians, I mean, generally my experience with Australians are that they're not religious. And there's probably more of my experiences with people just in passing, not like once you get to know someone and you talk about it, it's very interesting. I think Australians find it interesting in a kind of matter-of-fact way and information way, but often in passing, there is often this kind of condescending, oh, you're religious, oh, you've been had, you poor thing, kind of like, there's a little bit of that kind of prejudice, I think, in that way, or feel sorry for you way of religion in general, which is also understandable. Religion has caused a lot of disunity and problems and conflict, and I completely understand that. But I think fortunately people who have heard of Baha'i look at it in quite positive light. So I've been fortunate when I come across people, oh, Baha'is, I know about that or whatever. And, you know, there's a temple I went to in India that's a Baha'i temple, and different things. So it's been positive generally, but I personally love talking about like the meaning of life and religion. And I don't really mind it. I had one person though ask me about Baha'i, and then I started explaining, and they're like, "Okay, listen, like you don't need to preach to me." And I was like, "You just asked me."
Really?
I think they were just super paranoid in Australia, in Melbourne. Yeah, but it was more like I think they were just.
Did you take the pamphlet back
No,
off?
no, it was
wow.
So
we've never had someone.
I mean, if I was to ask someone what a religion is, or as in what is that religion, it's a complex question that probably needs a long form conversation.
You do hear a lot of people saying, "I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual." You know?
Do you reckon that's a cop out?
No. I think it's good. Like I get it. I mean, religion for me is just a way to organize spirituality. It's like a system.
Why do you say
like
Baha'i
science.
faith rather than Baha'i religion?
That's a good question. I mean, we consider it a religion, but it's also basically, it's a faith. It's something you believe in. It's not necessarily, I guess like all religion, you could say it's a way of life, but something the Baha'i community is very aware of. And this is changing also as, the Baha'i faith is very personal, but then it's also very organized, and there's one Baha'i. So if like you're a Baha'i in Uganda and you're a Baha'i in Chicago and you're a Baha'i in Australia, you pretty much believe in the same thing, except there's a lot of room for your interpretation of things, and how your culture and your circumstances are obviously going to influence that. And Baha'is, I think, are very careful and getting better at this, never to say like, Baha'is believe X, Y, and Z. They often say like, my understanding of the Baha'i faith is such and such. And that's, I think, an important nuance, because we can't assume to understand. We have a lot of scripture. We have over 100 volumes of scripture, and we're still trying to figure it out. And I might read a paragraph from some of our scripture and take it a certain way, and I might read it a week later and get something else out of it, depending on my experiences. So we're careful not to be too prescriptive as well. It's this kind of balance of being, one religion, one faith, but also realizing that everyone has their own journey. And just on that, the one thing that's important is Baha'is are not allowed to proselytize. We believe that religion is a very personal thing. People have to find their own path to God if they want that, or even if they don't want it, then don't believe in anything. We're not supposed to force anyone to believe in anything. It's a very personal thing. And I think that also, but at the same time, that depends on someone's background. Like someone who might come from an evangelical background in the US, who might be used to that and enthusiastic and excited about being a Baha'i, might be a little bit like, hey, have you heard of this? And and push it a lot. So it just depends.
Have you ever called out a Baha'i being like, man, stop evangelizing?
Yes, I have.
Really?
Yeah.
What did they say?
No, I think it's about using wisdom as well and trying to read the audience or the person you're meeting with. And, and it usually comes from a good place. Like people are excited about something, and, we're encouraged to teach the Baha'i faith, but that's very different to proselytizing it.
Yeah. I could imagine Josh being an excitable Baha'i guy.
Yeah.
really getting
Josh gets into everything.
Yeah. The joke was like, so many Envato peeps like, mate, you're going to come back Baha'i, guaranteed.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. No, 100%. I remember Selena and that being like, you Baha'i yet? Because I would go to all this, I'm interested. Yeah. I don't need to be like, for me.
You don't have to be something.
I don't see it as like a lot of the things that the Baha'i faith sort of believe in universal values or virtues. Like the people like Fuad, who is Collis's dad, is like one of the nicest people I've ever met, and he's Baha'i. So I look at all these people, I'm like, all my friends Baha'i, and they're like nice people.
Well, same with Christianity.
Yeah.
All religion, like
a lot of them. If you're into self-help, you hear a lot of the messages that Tony Robbins or all these people are actually saying in very old scripture that was written hundreds and hundreds.
Deepak Chopra always says, like, it's not me. This is from Hinduism, and this is, it's all coming from, at least I believe, a divine source, and then we retranslate it into other ways for us to digest and understand.
I'm reading a Deepak Chopra book at the moment, small little one.
Oh, cool.
The 7 spiritual
truths.
Yeah. It's good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I'd love to dive into it, but
The book or that topic?
Baha'i, like
Oh,
to
okay,
understand it more. But I get it. It's interesting then, because if you're not to proselytize, is that the word?
Yeah.
You can.
How do you get into it?
So
How does someone like just go like? Because it's almost like the intrigue. I'm now more intrigued that you don't want to sort
They're
of be
negging you.
They're negging me.
oh, that's that's the hook. That's the plan. Yeah. No.
How can I find
we're
out
taught
more?
offing. We're just taught offing.
Yeah, you should
Ask
see,
me 3 times.
You should see Naysan. You should see Naysan peacocking. He's the Baha'i pants. But no, how do you explain it? Baha'i.
In a sentence.
We've got to ask him 3 times.
There's a few major principles of the Baha'i faith. We believe in one God, but whatever that is, we don't have a name for God, like you call it, whatever, in different languages. And it's an unknowable essence or something. And some people might call it the love energy, or, Muslims say Allah.
Do people
In
call
English,
it the
you say
love
God.
energy?
No, but
Really?
I mean,
it sounds like some sort of like yoga instructor who's found
that's
Baha'i
true.
faith.
Love energy does
Love
sound
energy's
a little
got
bit,
that
Tantric.
It could, there's
Tantric
something
energy.
beyond the material realm.
Yeah.
There's a creator. I think human beings are fascinating. I don't think this just came.
Are you looking at your carpal tunnel? Because
I'm just looking at my hand. I mean, human beings are fascinating. I think there's obviously design involved, so that had to come from something. So one God, whatever that may be for you as an individual, like how I envision that might be very different to someone else who's a Baha'i. So one God, one world. We believe the earth is one country and mankind are its citizens. So, obviously we have nationalities and these borders, but these are man-made or human-made. We have created more division than there needs to be. We're all members of the same human race, human family, and that we all need to come together. So a paramount teaching or theme of the Baha'i faith is unity, to the point that even the prophet of the Baha'i faith, Baha'u'llah, says, if religion is a source of disunity, it's better not to have it at all. That's how important it is for us. So, one God, one religion, and also in the sense that, world unity, and one religion, where all the religions we feel come from the same source. They are inspired by God, whether it's Aboriginal, indigenous people in Australia, or Native Americans, Buddhism, Hinduism. As a Baha'i, I believe in Lord Buddha, I believe in Krishna, I believe in Muhammad, Moses, Christ. We believe that these different messengers of God or manifestations of God have come to humanity at different times and different places and shared something that would help the people of that era and time and place live a better life, both spiritually and materialistically or practically. That's another principle of the faith, that science and religion goes hand in hand. We don't think it's this or that. We don't say that for us, it's not creation, or like Adam and Eve, or is it just science, or we kind of, you might say it's like milk and tea. You can't separate the two. The two are kind of living coherently. So everything can be explained by science.
I was just going to say, if you're using almond milk, it's a different story.
Doesn't mix.
It's very true.
You got to keep spinning it.
Yeah.
So those are some of the main principles. We believe in the equality of women and men. There's an analogy that, it's like a bird. Men are one wing, women are the other. Until both are strong, the bird can't fly straight and properly. And we need to, in our religion, in our scripture, if you are a family that has a boy and a girl, and you can only afford to send one child to school, you send the girl.
Why?
So, because they're the educator of the children. And actually now, all the science and experience has shown the United Nations, like UNICEF, that's a standard policy in UNICEF now, educating the girl child. So there's a lot of principles like that we believe in. And
How old is it?
it's about 167 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
And as far as you talk about scripture, what is this? Is this a book? What would it be?
Yeah, so we have...
Is it like the Quran? It's the Bible?
Yeah, we have actually a number. There's about 100 volumes of Baha'i scripture. There is a book of laws, but that's a book of laws. And we have many different tablets and books that talk on many different subjects. And Baha'is generally use all of those in conjunction with each other. You can't just look at like this one thing and then use it in isolation of something else. You have to look at all of it together, because also certain tablets may have been written for something very specific.
So has Baha'u'llah written all of
Baha'u'llah
these?
is the prophet, yes.
Did he write all?
He wrote, so he's written a huge amount of scripture. And then his son was the successor, in a sense, of Baha'u'llah's revelation. And then he hasn't given permission by Baha'u'llah to interpret and expand on a lot of it.
Did you ever, when you were younger, move away from the faith?
Yeah, I mean, so that's another principle of the faith, is that just because I was born into a Baha'i family, but just because you're born into a Baha'i family, it doesn't mean you're a Baha'i. Like, it's something we believe, independent investigation of truth for each human being. So even though my parents were Baha'i, it was up to me to find my own path and decide if I want to be a Baha'i or not a Baha'i or something else. I was raised in a very, active Baha'i family. Obviously, my parents are going to raise me as a Baha'i with Baha'i principles. But then I went through my own journey. I did a lot of reading. I didn't want to be a Baha'i for a while. I felt I was very much, I believed in Che Guevara and revolution, Frantz Fanon. I felt there needed to be change. The world was a violent, unjust place. I wanted positive change, but I felt you couldn't have positive change through peaceful means. You had to have positive change through force at times, because you can't talk to a violent dictator by being nice and tadofing. Sometimes you need to use violence to have revolution. And I quickly, as you read more and study more about history and the world, and you look at, Gandhi and Martin Luther King and the, a Bolshevik revolution, I realize at least, that the only true revolution can happen through peaceful means, because there needs to be, coherence in what you believe. The ends don't justify the means. You have to have coherence in how you do things. So for me, it was, a journey of discovery. And I think probably by the time I was 18, I really decided for myself, this is something I really believe in. And of course, we're all trying to follow. You'll meet a lot of Baha'is that are a whole spectrum. Some are struggling with certain things. Everybody's got their struggles, and we're all coming from different walks of life, and we're all trying to live according to the revelation of Baha'u'llah, or the teachings, as best we can. But it's a constant journey. So,
how much impact did your dad have on who you are?
I think a huge amount of impact. Yeah, both my parents.
So he was a doctor?
Yeah, my dad was a medical doctor. My parents left Chicago. My dad felt he didn't want to be a doctor to be another doctor in the US. There was enough doctors. He wanted to go somewhere that needed more doctors. So they applied to a number of different countries in the world. And
do you know what was on the list?
I know Chad was one of the countries.
Where the fuck is Chad?
Chad is in Africa. It's a French-speaking country. Really? But my parents...
Chad sounds like some Californian dude.
Yeah, I have a close friend named Chad from the US. What's up, Chad?
What's up, Chad?
Chad's watching.
Yeah, he'll probably listen to this.
Chad!
No, but I think my parents were like, we learn English. We don't have to learn another language. We don't have to learn French. And also the medical school in Papua New Guinea really wanted my dad, and they wrote back. This is in the days of mail, actual paper mail. They wrote back to him straight away and said, please come. He went for a 2-week visit, came back to the States and told my mom, it's awesome, we're going.
That's cool.
Were you pissed off? Being a kid who you had this comfy life in Chicago.
So we went to Papua New Guinea twice. I was 2 when we went till 5. We went back to Chicago when I was 5, and I was there till I was 9. And then 9 we went back to Papua New Guinea. That was, at the beginning, it was an adventure. It was hard, but then as Papua New Guinea has a lot of challenges, unfortunately, the crime is quite high. And so I experienced a lot of trauma, you could say, and experiencing and witnessing quite brutal violence. So, I started to become very why did we leave the suburbs of Chicago? That was quite difficult, yeah.
Because when Naysan and I have travelled, you've got quirks based on you. My trauma is having dirty glasses, whereas Naysan's trauma is what you want to not be on the ground level. You hate being on the ground level.
And it just proves my point. Australia,
it's awesome.
It's really safe here.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah.
We haven't had to worry about much.
And so your dad got sick, was in a coma for how long?
Yeah, my dad had bypass surgery, and the surgery was successful, but we don't know what happened while he was in intensive care afterwards. They keep them under observation after an operation like that. He went into coma. He was in coma for 2 years, and then he passed away. Yeah.
And so what was that 2 years like?
That was hard. I came for I was away for the first 6 months. My older sister came and helped my mom look after my dad. And then I came and my sister went back to her husband, and she was living in Canada at the time. And I came and helped my mom look after my dad. It was hard. I think, it was really hard for my mom. My mom and dad were extremely in love. It's hard. And my dad was, a really vibrant powerhouse. Like he loved life. I mean, when he would eat, like he would really eat, and he would spend a lot of time. Yeah. And he'd spend a lot of time in the jungles and doing medical work. And meant, the people really, really loved him. And so it was hard, I think, to see someone like my dad just laying there on a hospital bed looking asleep. And there's not much research actually medically even in comas. So there's a whole the little research that's been done are all so different. So it's hard to tell what state the person is in. So that was actually very difficult. And, my mom was phenomenal, and I think it was very hard for her, but she handled it really well. And it was an interesting time. It was a very interesting time.
What was the personal growth for you? What did that perspective give you, do you think?
I think you really realize that you have to do everything you can while you can. You realize that you don't know. My dad went in for this operation that was like a preventative operation, and the operation was fine. I was filming a project, and I was in Vancouver at the time, and I called my mom in the ICU unit. And she was like, "Oh yeah, your dad's here. He's fine. The operation went well. He's having soup right now." And we had some family visitors, and everything was fine. But that morning at 3 a.m., my dad went into coma. So you just don't know. Like, you can think things are fine, but then things can turn. So I think for me, it really kind of stressed the urgency of really trying to do what you want to do as quickly as you can, in a sense, because you never, like, not putting things off, but then also doing what's important, like kind of, choosing the big rocks in the jar. I don't know if you've heard that analogy, like triaging the kind of things you want to do and making sure that you try and accomplish that.
How are you with teamwork versus individualism, do you think?
That's a hard one for me, because on one hand, I really...
These people are shit.
No, I really want to get stuff done, and it's always easier sometimes to just do stuff on your own. It's in some ways, it's like, I'll just do it myself. But then on the other hand, I feel like it's not always the healthiest thing. You don't grow as much as an individual, and the product isn't always as good as it could be. I think you'll see certain solo artists in music, for example, like Prince, for example. I mean, God, he did amazing work, but a lot of bands that the person does the lyrics, the bass, the drums, the guitar, everything kind of might not be as dynamic and colorful in a sense as it could be if there was a collaboration of musicians coming together. There's a different kind of energy. And I think in a lot of the work we do, whether it's creative or not, I think there's a certain energy that comes from collaboration, which sometimes can be slower and more painful and more difficult, because working with people are always hard. Everybody's layered. We're all complex, but I feel like it's an important thing to do. I think we have to try, and it's a good way to make yourself grow, for example.
I can see why you guys are friends, or you've stayed friends.
What do you have any final questions for Naysan? This is your opportunity to get any other.
To be honest, guys, I've been worried about my car park.
Oh, really?
I'm parked in a 2-hour spot, and I'm well over.
Really?
I was just worried about getting a ticket.
Oh, my Lord. And that is I have chased parking attendants down the street.
Have you?
Because they have given me tickets and I still had time.
Yeah.
Have you ever had that happen to you? It was
No.
unbelievable.
Oh, that's bullshit.
No, now this was before, now it's all digital. So, but this is before then. And I've literally run after them being like, what are you doing?
We know this big we know this big muscly bodybuilder, professional bodybuilder, who's a ticket inspector around here, and I
felt his abs.
Yeah, and he was smiling as Josh touched him. Anyway, I said to him, "Oh, do you get blokes like wanting to fight you?" He says, "Nah, guys, leave me alone. It's the girls. They
go nuts.
scream and yell at me because they he's not going to do anything."
Yeah.
And so he just writes his ticket. But that's
But
what I
do
was
they
thinking.
get a commission? This is what I want to know.
I'm sure.
I mean, we were too scared to ask him anything beyond, can I touch
Can
your
you
abs?
find out, please?
Yeah, we definitely will.
the whatever council it is around sort of Windsor Way, what's Stoddington?
Stonington, yeah, potentially.
Beautiful uniforms.
Oh, good.
Of the
Uniforms are important.
They wear sort of. It sounds like I'm describing the UPS guys again.
Shorts.
Yeah, but it's like a navy short with a light blue,
That's
and they
professional.
they have this like long stick that has the chalk.
That's so they don't do their backs.
Yeah, but it looks like a legit quality. Like it
Yeah.
looks like it's
like a wand.
Yeah, like a really legit one.
Josh loves uniforms.
Oh, he does.
When we're in the
He loves
States,
the
he
man
was
in
always
uniform.
checking out fire trucks, UPS delivery trucks. He's like, in the US, they have cool trucks all the time.
Yeah,
It's
they
like,
do. I always joke that Naysan should have been a mall cop, security.
Yeah, on
Just
a
like a
Segway?
little bit sort of, just like the pathetic run chasing someone is there. Yeah. And you would I feel like you would get fired for too much aggression, like just pinning.
slam the guy down, slam the old lady
Yeah,
down.
pinning a 14-year-old kid against the wall or whatever.
Thank you for coming on. We'll have to get you back on.
Yeah,
Thank
as
you.
the
Thanks
old
so
mate.
much. Awesome.
Was it
Yeah.
what you expected?
I did not expect to eat.
Was
Thought you were
on
gonna
camera?
Demolish it.
Okay, yeah.
No,
That
we
was
will.
good.
As
I
soon as
really
the
loved it,
camera's off.
guys. I really appreciate it.
Naysan Naraki's.
I'm glad there was some. I was worried that it would just be all joking around.
Yeah. Well,
Glad we covered some very
Yeah, we went
controversial and deep topics.
Well, Naysan said to me, but before we came on the show, I said to him, don't mind about ripping into me. He's like, no, I don't really want to. I'd prefer to be positive. I'm like, I'm only saying because I want to fucking rip into you. And if you don't rip into me,
Yeah.
I just look like an asshole. And which is pretty classic.
Is it what you'd hope, Josh?
Yeah, it was fun.
It's everything.
It's all right.
And more.
It's a Daily Talk Show, everyone. Hi at thedailytalkshow.com if you want to send us an email. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow.
See you
Thanks for
guys.
having me. Bye.